and a wonderful day for mothers to be celebrated. As my grandfather would tease my grandmother, it was the one day of the year she didn't have to do any work. Mother's Day, though, on a serious note, is an opportunity to thank our mom for her kindness when she tended to our bruises after we wiped out on a bicycle, or when she carried us into the doctor's office after we smashed our thumb with a hammer. We recall those times she laughed so hard she began to hyperventilate, or when she took us to see our first movie, or the time she stopped by the DQ for an ice cream cake after our first crush broke our heart. She helped us eat the whole thing. Wonderfully, we thank and celebrate moms on this Mother's Day, while at the same time as a body of believers with diverse journeys in life who know that Jesus Church is an inclusive place for all people to worship and belong. We acknowledge that there are women who struggle with this day because of grief over pregnancy complications and or with infertility. We recognize as caring people that for some, this day elevates personal pain. This emotion felt on this day can elicit tears and sadness. It is a reality that some of us don't know personally, but we can acknowledge it's felt by some on Mother's Day. Which for me is one of the reasons as caring people we provide permission and space for hurt and pain to be experienced in this holy space. It is a place where we provide a sanctuary that says, you are not alone. For we are willing to be here with you and for you, to share your pain and your grief. Now granted, throughout history, the church has not done this well, perhaps neglecting to acknowledge the pain some childless widows experience or the heartache of not having a mom can cause. And sometimes additional burdens are placed on those who struggle, which only adds to their plight and causes additional heartache. Yet there are some in the congregation who have provided life-giving acts to provide healing and wholeness, like the congregation in our reading today. It appears the congregation not only provided space for their members to interweave their lives, they also provided a space for the women in their midst to create a community of faith development. This is evident when Luke introduced Tabitha as a disciple. This is the only place in the New Testament that the feminine form of the Greek word disciple is used. Tabitha was a woman after God's own heart, and she was well known, not just in the Christian community, but among the Roman community as well, which is a reason Luke provided her Greek name. Perhaps as a disciple, she preached and taught others about Jesus, or she simply used her good works to speak the gospel for her, as she sewed and knitted tunics and handcrafted clothing for the community. Granted, handcrafted goods were common in those days, yet among the artisans and other widows who would have made similar items, her work stood out. Luke reports that her work was of great quality, and he says she worked on behalf of the poor as she was devoted to good works and acts of charity. In other words, she didn't just dabble in good works as if it were a mere hobby or something to fill her time. She invested her life and creative skills to care for those in need and to provide good works for others up to the day that she became ill and died. After her death, the entire community gathered to mourn over the loss of a beloved saint, and they began to wonder how on earth they would replace her. Who, they pondered, would do what she did? Who could ever fill her spot? Desperate for the whole community to heal from this great loss, they sent for Peter, who was preaching nearby. Now, it's unclear if they expected Peter to assist the community in finding its footing and discover emotional and spiritual healing, or if they thought he could restore her life, though in the passage immediately preceding our reading, Peter healed a man who had been bedridden for 8 years. So maybe they clung desperately to the hope that he could do something miraculous. And it turned out, through the power of God, she came back to life. Though it is intriguing, whereas one would expect her to jump up and have a celebration, unexpectedly she went right back to work, sewing tunics and making clothes for the community. Clearly, her desire to serve the community was important to her, and receiving a new lease on life, she possibly poured her reclaimed energy into her passion to knit and sew, which allowed her to be a channel of Jesus' love as she stitched the community back together. This is where her story becomes an example for us to imitate. After all, the emphasis on this passage was not on Peter's ability to heal. Rather, it's focused on the good works Tabitha provided to the community. Tabitha recognized her God-provided skill of knitting and sewing, so as a disciple and witness of Jesus' love, her generous works created a positive change for the community, for the church, and for the world. She shared the products of her gifts with the community so that she could be a channel of God's love. And by her example, we are invited to imitate her, and we are encouraged to utilize our skills and ability to be channels of God's love as well, to have a passion of sharing our gifts with others, and devoting ourselves to good works so we reveal God's glory. Through our works and good deeds, we become a thread that binds the community together. In Ephesians, Paul wrote that the body of Christ, the church, is knit together in love. And Tabitha, by utilizing her gifts, showed that sewing can be a means of love. Imitating Tabitha, perhaps some of us have a passion for knitting or sewing, so that by utilizing these creative skills, we create hats and mittens for those in need. Perhaps we should also consider offering classes as well, so that this trait and this skill isn't lost. And that way others can learn how to know, to knit and sew, and thus be channels of God's love as well. Perhaps like Tabitha, some of us have the ability to utilize our God-provided skills to create handcrafted items for the community. For example, we're already turning plastic bags into mats for the homeless to sleep on, so that they don't have to sleep on the cold, hard cement. Perhaps utilizing additional skills we have, maybe we could consider not only making mats for the Motor City Mitten mission to help the homeless. Perhaps we could utilize our woodworking skills to create temporary mobile structures which could provide protection for the homeless from the elements. Perhaps, like the community who lovingly cared for Tabitha, we too possess a passion to care for others, so we willingly meet with broken people and pray for those who mourn or need to overcome an illness. Therefore, we become prayer partners for our community, opening our church, opening our homes, for monthly or weekly meetings where we host prayer groups. Since it's obvious that some of us have a passion to create works of art for our art ministry program, perhaps there's a desire to teach this lesson to others, or to create additional works of art that could reveal or channel God's love. Perhaps, since some of us are gifted with organizing and hosting rummage sales, and some of us have savvy computer and technological skills, what if together a high-tech internet approach was taken and a rummage sale was held, operated through eBay or Amazon or through the internet, and then the profits still given to charity? Sticking with the rummage sale idea, recently I was introduced to mom-to-mom sales, and I reached out to a church in Sterling Heights that held their sale 2 weeks ago just to find out additional information. Janine responded to my questions, writing that her congregation used to hold an annual rummage sale. But a few years ago, they discovered they were unable to tap into the energy they once had to organize and sort through items. So a few years ago, they decided to host a mom-to-mom sale, just as an experiment. She said members immediately loved it. Since the sale was held on one day, members were less stressed about setting up and organizing items to sell, and they reclaimed a passion that they had lost. They reclaimed a passion for cooking and baking, and so freed from daily sorting, some of the women in the church utilized their passion to bake, to make brownies and cookies, and also handcrafted items which they sold at the mom-to-mom sale. She said it only took 10 volunteers to run the event. Some of the volunteers assisted sellers to set up their booths and tables. Some simply walked around the church responding to the needs of sellers and buyers. And some collected an admission fee at the door or worked in the church kitchen, which they renamed the cafe, where they sold homemade baked goods along with pizza and bags of chips from Costco. Janine said it was a great success. They had 300 people attend the event, and most importantly, everything they raised was given to a child respite charity to help families in need. Perhaps, maybe, it's something to consider as we respond to Jesus' call to put the skills and interests we possess into action for the benefit of the community as we channel God's love through our good works. Or perhaps We do a variety of all the above. So by combining our various gifts, we can provide a holy wholeness for our community as we care for each other, praying for each other, and channeling God's love as we genuinely care for each other. Recalling that the church is a place that can offer healing and holy wholeness to widows, to moms, and to those who are heartbroken on Mom's Day. Just as the widows surrounded Tabitha, so we as the church are called to surround each other, surrounding each other with comfort and with the message that proclaims, you are not alone. As channels of God's love, we recall that our lives are interwoven as we care for each other. We see that God is like a loving mom when we are provided protection and our heartbroken, bruised hearts and lives are cradled in this place. Mindful of God's presence, we receive God's care so that we in turn care for each other. And as we do good works and give to charity, we channel God's love, thus making a difference in the world, in the community, and in the church, so that all have an opportunity to receive God's love, which can comfort and nurture, just like the love of a mother, when she reflects the love of God and attends to our lives with care. On this special day, we thank you, moms. We thank you for channeling God's heart, so that you are always a reflection of God's tender care. We appreciate all that you do for us. We appreciate your creativity. We appreciate your dreams. And we appreciate your support. Because without you, we wouldn't be able to be the people we are. Without you, we wouldn't know the tender care of giving hands. And we certainly wouldn't know how to be open to people who don't have our experiences. We thank you, moms. We thank you for your great big hearts. Happy Mother's Day.